Welcome to Noel's Good Friend Show. I'm your host, Noel. It's a show where I invite my friends to talk about friendship, how to meet new people, and how to be a good friend. Today's episode is called Friendship 101, and it's all about making friends in college. Joining me today is a poet, educator, and a very, very good friend. Please welcome Miranda. Hello, welcome to the show. First off, you look incredible. I love your outfit. I thought of Miranda to be the perfect guest for today's show because she and I went to college together. But also interestingly, it's almost like a precursor to this show. She and I had a radio show together called, and this will kind of date it in history. It was called. I even went by a different name. Manny and Miranda Stay Woke.
Oh,
Mhm. And then we'd get on the show and talk about, kind of topics that, frankly, I was learning in my gender women studies class. Um, and we had this like recurring joke that we only had 7 listeners, two of which were my parents. Anyway, so starting us off, I usually start. The first segment is about like our friendships as past, and especially as it relates to college. And you and I met at university, at least for both of our freshman years, because I had transferred out the following year. So, in your own words, what was your kind of earliest memories of you and I meeting?
my earliest memory of you and I meeting was like the day we met. I was leaving the commons. I was walking out of the door. You were like holding the door so I could come out, and like it was just kind of like movie scene, like where the like you could see the cameras and like you could see the pan up, um, and so that was like our meeting.
My version of the story is I had known about you before we had met because so I was still in high school, like senior year, like when everybody was like touring schools, and I didn't even know if I was going to make it to college because I didn't have the money for it at the time. One of my friends from school, Jennifer Eiskopf, we were in the same art classes together, and she was just like, I went to tour Salisbury. It's so nice. And I met this girl, and you have to meet her. I already know that you guys are going to like each other. Da, da, da. I didn't remember the name that she said. Yeah, fast forward. That was also like my memory of us meeting. It's like, we were crossing paths. It really was like kind of like anime, kind of like, it was so dramatic.
The
I
wind
have such
blows
a,
through, and like the hair starts.
and I think I said something to the effect of, you're not from around here, are you? Because you just look so like unique and like and for context, Salisbury University was like, in this kind of college town, like, very honestly classic American college vibes. It's like evergreen, you know, it was like, kind of like a quiet town otherwise. And then we were walking around together because, by then we had started like just like hanging out. And then we ran into Jen and she goes, "Oh, you guys have met." I was like, "Oh my God, this has been like preordained." You know what I mean? So yeah, like really incredible stuff.
Yeah,
So, we have it's been a long time since we graduated college.
not
Or
that
since that
long.
time.
We're not old. What?
But no, it's interesting, having this conversation because, a lot of it isn't like in retrospect and like, we're thinking about it through the lens of like where we are now. And so to that end, my question is, uh, what qualities do you think made college friendships different from other types of friendships that preceded it? Do you say?
There's this level of like trauma bonding, honestly, that occurs in college because you have the academic aspect where we're all like fighting for our lives, trying to pass our classes, or trying to like lock in together. That was very similar and kind of reflected like high school friendships and things like that. But you had this added aspect of like this is also the first time most of us are living alone.
Mhm.
The first time we're away from our families and we are trying to figure it out. Like, and that alone just kind of bonds people, right? Like, so
Mhm. Mhm.
now it's a survival thing. Now it's
Yeah.
can we lean on each other to figure out how to do the laundry? Like,
Yeah, right. Wait, wait, this is so funny you're mentioning this because I distinctly remember there's this boy who was like, I went to the laundry room and he was like staring at like the laundry detergent, like, and it was like, You put it in there. To be honest, like when I was growing up, my mom did our laundry, but I had like an intuitive sense of like how to use the washing machine.
I
But
love
he was
that we both
baffled.
had that experience because literally my first night of college, I moved in early with my LLC. That first night, I spent in the laundry room teaching someone how to do laundry.
You would think that the earliest challenges would be like, getting to class and like, like this kind of unique schedule. And then like, but it's just like laundry.
Laundry.
Yeah. I mean, I had this moment within like the first week when I noticed that everybody was just kind of like, gallivanting about. I just had this thought that whether that's at orientations or parties or whatever, and I had this thought that sitting in like the dorms, I was like, oh, this is like an adult daycare.
Daycare
Yeah.
for transitioning adults.
Literally.
Yeah, no, you're right. Like, there's just so many experiences that are just like, you know, fundamentally we're trying to work together to solve a problem. It's not just the academics, right? Like that it gives the friendships you make in college this entirely new light because you're growing up together, but it's like the learning curve is insane.
I mean, the earliest kind of realization for me was when my dad and my sister like dropped me off and then they left. And then I had this thought when I got into the elevator that I was like, I'm hungry. And then there's just this deafening silence that I was like, I guess I should go eat. Like there was nobody calling me to dinner. I was like, this is like, I guess I have to go get food. Do you think that the culture of college between dorm life and classes and clubs makes it easier or harder to form genuine connections?
I'd like to say easier, but honestly, I think it's harder because I just think about some of the first friendships I made in college, and many of them did not last past even like first semester. So I think genuine is really doing the heavy lifting here. Where it's like, yeah, it's easy to make friends. There's people all around you. Like, there's people you
Yeah.
can roll over, and there's a person there.
Right, right.
So you're like in your room with you at all times. Like,
Quite literally, right? Yeah.
genuine. You can go to the bathroom. There's more people. So it's easy.
Yeah.
It's very easy to just like someone into these acquaintanceships and things and think they're friendships. And then I feel like that's part of the learning curve too, right? Like that finding out what is real and what is not because we are so bubbled, right? The campus becomes
Yeah,
this
yeah.
kind of ecosystem of its own.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of proximity, what I mean, which is,
Mhm.
you know, it is like an important part of like making friends is like just being around each other, enough to kind of, get a sense of the other person. But whether that's harder and or easier, I think it's more like the design of it is not the most conducive for genuine friendships, not just because of like the nature of it, but also like when you're that young, like a lot of people don't even know what a genuine friendship is. So like, it's a lot of like learning to build the car while you drive it kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, genuine.
My last question for this segment is, you know, what, 10 years since our freshman year. I don't know why I keep punctuating this, but what advice would you give to someone struggling to meet friends in their first year of college? Like,
So my best advice or my biggest piece of advice would be to go outside. Okay. Go to the event. Like, obviously in high school, like, the school dances were a little bit more corny, but go to the school dances, go to the activity fair, go to the little things that they put on, because they are structured events where you will
Mhm.
meet so many different people and specifically that activity fair, really find a club, find a niche, find somewhere where your interests are put at the pinnacle or at the center because that is how you'll make the connections, right? With the radio, us joining radio. It wasn't just you and I, we made so many invaluable connections. Like Marco and MK. I don't know if you remember MK. But just so many
Ultra,
different
MK
people.
Ultra. I'm just kidding. I was like, whoa, whoa.
And MK
The
Ultra.
conversation's going a different direction than expected.
Gotcha, Nick. But yeah, no, just find those clubs because we so much, right? Like we
Yeah.
hop into so many different clubs.
Adding on to that advice, there's the action, right, of like going out there doing the thing, and I totally agree and all that. And then the other aspect of it is to level your expectations around like, how much of those connections may stick around. And even if, somebody is in your life for a fleeting moment, I did like the dance crew at Salisbury for,
Yeah.
I think
Oh
both
my
semesters
God, you
actually.
did.
I did. And then like am not connected to many of those people anymore, but I still valued so much of like when I was there. And I think something I try to do in the show is like to find like these kind of recurring tenets of friendship. And one of those things that I'm, trying to kind of hammer is this idea of like it doesn't have to last forever for it to be valuable. But those friendships, temporary as they may have been, like I keep them with me and I don't regret having spent time and, connecting with those people for any amount of time. So
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's seasonal, you know? It can serve you for
totally.
that season and just be it, and that in and of itself is the value.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break, but please stick around. There'll be more Noel's Good Friend Show. We're back. You're here at Noel's Good Friend Show. I'm here with my good friend Miranda. We're talking about college today. So, how did we stay close after graduating? Were there any growing pains in our friendship post college?
Think we would just like kind of like when we knew there were breaks like summer,
Mm-hmm.
winter, when we knew there was like time, we would just do our best to kind of make that contact.
Yeah.
Um, and for a while it was a bit more, we met in DC for Jaleo,
Yeah. Right.
and there were times where you and Rachel and I hung out in DC, and we would just do our best when we were in the area to make that contact. But I think
Yeah.
as we got older and as more time, was spent, obviously we got busier. He moved to New
Yeah.
York.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I had a child. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's just so much that like went on. And I think the as far as like growing pains, the only like pain was just that like real those moments where you want to turn and be like, oh, and then you're not there. So that kind of pain, absolutely. Um, but I think what saved us the most was really just recognizing that if they're not reaching out, it's not because they hate you. If they're not making, like, if they don't have the time to meet, even though they're in the city, even though they're maybe close, like, it's not oh, they're dissing me. Oh, this friendship is dying. It was a very understanding that your time is your time and ours, my time is my time. And when we have time for each other, we will be there. And when we don't, the feeling still stands. The love
Yeah.
is still there. It's not negligence. And I think
Yeah.
that's the thing that kills so many friendships. Like, well, you're texting me 24 hours a day. Well,
Right.
girl,
Right.
take away.
It's a lot of assumption of intent behind like, like
True.
behavior or non-behavior, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I guess how I think of like friendships, that are long distance or we don't have like, we don't contact each other all the time. How
Mm,
I maintain that sense of closeness is it's actually I don't base it on how often we hear from each other. It's actually how much access I give you to the information and how deep I get. So that's why I think that's what's underlying, when people talk about like, oh, we haven't seen each other in a while, and when we saw each other, we just picked right back up. Because you didn't allow the time or the space since the last time you meet to alter the way you relate to one another. You know what I mean? Like you the information or whatever. So yeah, that's I think if there was any growing pains is that I just missed you. You know what I mean? But it was never I never felt disconnected or like that you and I weren't you and me.
yeah, absolutely.
So did our friendship evolve as you went through different phases of life post college?
Absolutely. Oh my God, as it should. I think some people really have trouble um coping with the fact that a friendship will never stay the same. And it really shouldn't, because as you're moving through different parts of your life, I want to include you, right? Like you're not just Noel, my ratchet friend, like you're Noel, you're about to be an uncle of my child. You know what I mean? Like your teeth are like you know.
Right.
So it's yeah, absolutely. And I think with the
Mm.
expectations we have from each other, the things that we need from each other has changed too, and
Mhm,
you know,
mhm,
and that is a good thing. The transition from again, you and me busting it back at a party, and you and I, meeting in New York to um,
mhm,
uh, have good meals and just work on projects together. Like I think, and that actually those are consistent. We've always
mhm,
worked on projects together throughout the years,
mhm,
but the projects themselves have evolved with us, and that
mhm,
I think is
mhm.
beautiful.
I mean, I was actually gonna say something to that effect. I think, I'm gonna say our responsibilities in life have evolved, but I actually had this distinct memory when it's a little bit of context. Like Miranda and I used to show up at parties, shake some ass, cause some drama, and leave. Like, drink, drink that jungle juice because it's free.
Don't do that. If you're in college now, don't do that. It was a different time. Don't
Oh
drink
yeah,
the
yeah.
jungle.
They're probably lacing it with all sorts of crazy
Don't do
stuff
it.
nowadays. But we were
It
so
was a
broke. We're
different
like,
era.
yeah, sure. It tastes good.
This was pretty COVID, y'all. Y'all understand.
Oh right, right.
Okay.
But no, uh, and then years later, so Miranda visited me in New York. I've been living here for going on 6 years. Um, and she visited me for the first time ever last year. And then we went on a night out, and there was this moment. I was like, we were at the party, shaking some ass, causing some drama, and leaving. And so many things do evolve, like because we as people evolve. But I think there's also such beauty in um the ways that some things just stay the same. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
totally. Did different career paths, time zones, or life milestones ever make it hard to relate? Mm.
Yes.
Yeah,
Really.
yeah,
But
yeah.
like, who cares?
Right, right. I mean, but
Like,
let me honor that though, like,
yeah.
because okay, around the time when we created our show, like, we were like young, sprightly revolutionaries. We're like, girl, we're gonna make this radio show, we're gonna change the world. This is my first time introducing, so doing it on the show is a bit risky. But I had wondered because after we graduated college, like I ended up moving to New York and like whatever, doing my artist dream. And then you kind of like went down this more traditional path of like getting married, having a kid, and all that stuff. And for a time, I did kind of question. I was like, "Oh, are we? I might have miscalculated our kind of like shared sense of, what hope and future, what our paths were going in life. What it felt like at the time was like a sense of guilt. Like I was able to move to the big city and pursue my dream, and Miranda, like I don't know if she feels fulfilled in having gone on that path. And then when you finally visited me here, that's when I realized, oh, that was her. That's what made her feel fulfilled. You know what I mean? I actually had to kind of step outside of myself and my concept of what fulfillment, the sense of pursuing your dream meant. And, neither was more valuable than the other.
Yeah, yes. And I think this might be the most powerful topic we touch on today because there's so many adult friendships where you're right, there is that schism, right? Where your life paths are not the same. We don't experience the same things, but it's the value in that is that we get to live vicariously through each other. You now will never need to have a child. You have one.
Thank
And
God.
when you're ready, she's coming for you. No, you know what I mean? Like, and now I never need to you know, wonder, New York, and
Yeah, yeah.
what if I really struck out and tried to make it as a spoken word? What if I was at the New Year weekend every night? It's really sad, and it, that so I love that we could, share these bits of our lives with each other, and I get a view into your world, and you get a view into mine, and in a way, I think, despite that being the path you're on and the path that I'm on, these paths converge so often and so frequently, and there's so much value in that. Because it's just so boring being with all the
Yeah.
housewives. It's apart. Noel.
And it, and Meanwhile, girl, this city is driving me nuts sometimes. Being
Exactly.
around all
When
this.
we can share that with each other, and it's so refreshing too, because I'm someone who the perspective I have to give to you is not tainted by the bureaucracy of your world, right? And the advice you have to give to me is not tainted by the bureaucracy of domesticity, or
I love the language there. Not tainted by the bureaucracy of our respective
yeah.
worlds. Think about. So we're gonna take that into our next break. We'll be right back with more Miranda on Noel's Good Friend Show. Welcome back. I'm here with my friend Miranda on Noel's Good Friend Show. Today we're talking about college, but now we're talking about post college. Do you think it's harder to make close friends in grad school? Why or when?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think earlier we spoke to like the bonds that are formed in the forges of our
The
undergrad, right?
trenches.
But in grad school, there's less of that uniformity right now. We're all not
Mm,
coming from the same walks of life. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
this is the second master for some people. This is their first. Some kids are like coming straight from undergrad into the master.
Listen,
Yep.
listen.
So they're like, they might as well be undergrad kids, like there's just so much, like so much of a wide variety of people. However, because of that, now I'm friends with this 50-year-old lady who's working at the school for the blind, and she's got this beautiful, like this just these great insights into education because she works with students who are on the fringes of education. I've got, friends who are years older than me and years younger than me. So in that way, it's valuable. She got to work for it so much harder.
Yeah. Oh my God. This is so weird. Like this, it keeps appearing as like a sort of like dichotomy, this idea of like proximity and intentionality. They have this kind of like relationship in friend making, whereas undergrad was so about proximity. You're in the same dorms, same classes, same, dining hall,
Yeah.
but lacking in intentionality because you're just kind of like there. And grad school is the complete inverse. No proximity many times. Um, not, and yet, but the other thing too is like, because you are coming from different walks of life, you're so much more intentional in trying to form a connection with the people that you do pick and choose within that program. Have you ever felt competitive with your friends in grad school? How do you navigate friendship in an environment where everyone is working towards similar goals? I think that's interesting because you're in education, so I doubt that would be that competitive, but you tell me.
I think the things we compete over are more ideological, you know, because there is that schism in the classroom. We're in education. Education, I mean, always, but right now especially, there are
Yeah.
like there are divisions. It's extremely divisive, the way that some people view education, and some teachers are in the private sector and not in the public sector. So they have their own. So that competition comes in when we're kind of battling for dominance with our ideological like
Yeah.
processes and
Sorry, but private sector education makes me think. Welcome to English 101, sponsored by Pfizer. For those balancing work, school, and relationships, how do friendships fit into that equation? How do you, how are you as the young woman that you are? How do you have it all, right?
I don't. It's all hanging by a thread. No, I'm just kidding. No, that's a fantastic question because you're right. And I think grace is the thing that is keeping it all afloat, because even in my grad classes, and what I hear too from those older than me who have already gone through this is be human,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have to bring your kid to grad school sometime. Okay. You have to hop off the Zoom and go pick up your child sometimes. You have to, go cook dinner while you're on
Yeah.
while you're in your class. There's so much that goes into it, but being human, being candid, being vulnerable, and having those who are in this with you hold that space for you as well. I think that's really the only way that this is working out as well as it is.
Yeah, yeah. You're like shaving your legs on the Zoom. Do not fret, people. I'm still listening. Let me just mute my
Grading
camera. Or just
papers,
mute me.
making a blanket for my child, just like just doing
Do you think making friends in grad school is more about networking than genuine connection? And how do you
yeah,
separate the two?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
it's more
There
about
is no
networking.
separation of church and state.
I find that there's a direct correlation between like how well I'm doing in life and if in a manic state and whether or not I'm considering grad school. It's like such a clear and direct relationship. It's embarrassing. Like one of my friends had dubbed me as the boy who cried grad school.
Right.
Because
Like, but
I have
what's your mental health indicator, whether or not I'm considering?
yeah, whether or not I'm considering
My
but
13th reason.
no, um,
No, they're
yeah.
just networking. I mean, you might find that needle in the haystack, but we know why we're here. We're here to advance our careers. No one was thinking that in undergrad. In grad school, that's all we're thinking. How is this student going to serve me and where I want to be? How can I take it further? And how can I use you to
Mhm.
further my cause? And I
Yeah.
think the thing to point out is like, not a bad thing.
If someone is starting grad school or continuing education and feels isolated, what advice would you give them for making friends and building community?
Oh, so I think the thing that kind of changed our cohort, oh my God, for the better, was making a Discord. Like
Mm,
we made a
mhm.
Discord
Yeah.
and blocked it out by classes and then had the general chat. So we could
Mhm.
cry and moan about the workload. We could,
Right, right, right.
did anyone talk to the professor? What is she talking about? Like, and we have that space to build that connection, to share memes, because the Zoom chat is one thing. The Zoom
Yeah,
chat is
yeah.
like, we're trying to put on. But the
Yeah.
Discord chat is like, did anyone just understand what she just said? Because that sounded crazy. And like, so we're
Yeah.
like, the teacher's like, the prof is like literally teaching. And like, we're on
Mhm.
Discord, like, no, I'm not doing that assignment. Oh my God. Like,
Yeah.
and you can see the people reading it and you're all like cackling in our cameras, like,
Right.
like passing notes in class.
Almost as a kind of like as a counter to what we just said about the
Mhm.
intentionality and the businessy side of like maybe pursuing grad school. I think um I mean, because funny enough, that is actually the networking. It is the Discord. It is like the memes that you sent each other. Like, because you know what I mean. Like, you could have been in the same class and just don't care for each other. But like, if you make an impression, you form a bond with somebody, and then that person ends up in a particular school, and then they're hiring, and it's that kind of networking because you have to. It's not just about being alumni of the same school. It's like actually forming a genuine kind of connection about someone so that they're looking out for you. You know what I mean? So,
Yes.
um, but yeah, that's almost all the time we have for today. I usually like to end with like a sort of whimsical question, but I guess
I live for the Lindsay.
if we didn't meet in college and met in any other circumstances, do you think we would still been friends?
Yes.
Yeah.
The bond between Filipinos is
Yeah, yeah.
undeniable. You see
Period.
the nose in public, and it's a wrap.
Like,
You have to
oh,
speak.
God.
You're For me, my father is
Totally.
Filipino, so right? Your
Yeah.
mother would be disappointed in you because you didn't.
Right, right.
No, I really do think that we would have, uh,
Mhm,
in any other situation,
mhm. Totally.
there would have. I feel as though there would have been a connection
Yeah,
because
I mean, like it's funny. Back in college, you kind of introduced me to like more like metaphysical, woo-woo kind of like belief systems, and we had talked about past life. You know what I mean? And this idea of like, I got really influenced. I was under some influence, and then I just had this like thought. I was kind of like, oh my God, I've known you in a past life, like, and I was like convinced of it. So yeah, I totally agree. Whether it's that past life. I'm so happy to be here now, and I hope I meet you again in the next life too. I'm so grateful to be your friend. Oh,
yes, I love you. Oh
I love you
yes.
too. And to you at home, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for being a good friend. This is Noel's Good Friend Show. Till next time.